After I refused to fund my daughter's luxury space wedding, she glared at me with eyes that burned like supernovae, and I felt a chill run down my spine. She had always been ambitious and reckless, but this was different. This was something I could not understand. I had thought that my wealth and influence could shield her from danger, but she had a plan that even I could not foresee. She whispered words that seemed soft but carried the weight of an entire galaxy. I told her no. I said I would not pay for a wedding that would cost more than an entire colony on Mars. She laughed, a sound like shards of ice colliding in zero gravity, and I felt the first hint of betrayal. I had never seen her like this. She was no longer my little girl. She was a force of nature, a storm I could not control. That night I went to sleep thinking the argument was over. I thought she would sulk or plead or even throw a tantrum, but nothing could have prepared me for the next morning. My hollow screen flickered with an incoming message. It was her face smiling sweetly as she said, "You should come see what I prepared for you." Before I could ask what she had done, the world around me shifted. I was no longer in my mansion or the luxury shuttle I had bought her. I was floating in darkness, a darkness so complete it pressed against my eyes and ears. I could feel the gravity of it pulling at my bones, and I realized with terror that I was trapped in a black hole simulation. The walls of the simulation were not walls at all. They were illusions of reality stretching into infinity. I reached out to touch them, but my hand passed through as if it were water. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My daughter appeared before me. She was no longer sweet or innocent. She had become something else, something terrifying and brilliant. She told me that this was her gift, a wedding present for me, the ultimate experience of love and betrayal. I had refused her, and now she was giving me a chance to understand her world. She waved her hand, and the stars twisted and shifted, forming shapes and patterns that made my head spin, and I understood for the first time that I was no longer in charge. Time became meaningless. Minutes and hours lost all sense as she manipulated the simulation. I saw my own memories projected in front of me, each one twisted and warped like a funhouse mirror. I saw my failures and my regrets, my lies and my secrets, all floating around me. I felt exposed and vulnerable. She whispered that this was only the beginning, that the black hole would not let me escape until I faced everything I had denied myself. She smiled and said, "Do you understand now why I must live as I choose?" And I realized that this was no ordinary revenge. This was art and punishment and love all wrapped into one unbearable experience. I tried to bargain with her. I tried to reason with her. I tried to appeal to the part of her that I had once nurtured, but nothing worked. She was a master of this simulation. She bent reality with a flick of her wrist, and I could not even predict the next moment. She made me relive the moment. I refused to fund her wedding. From every angle I felt her disappointment and anger as if it were my own, and I saw the luxury space yachts and the jeweled rings and the guests in zero gravity all mocking me. I felt my heart break over and over again until it became a rhythm, a pulse of pain that I could not escape. Then the simulation changed again. I was no longer a father. I was a stranger in a world I did not recognize. I saw people I had trusted plotting against me. I saw alliances form and dissolve. I saw betrayal at every corner, and I realized with horror that this was the true nature of her mind, a mind that could weave entire galaxies into stories of loyalty and treachery. She told me that the black hole simulation would continue until I truly understood her, and I knew that I could never leave until I surrendered to the truth of her power and the depth of her resentment. The stars began to bleed colors I had never seen, and gravity shifted in impossible ways. I floated through visions of the future weddings of other people and civilizations. I saw my daughter walking among them, a queen of light and shadow, commanding loyalty and fear. I wanted to reach out to her to beg her to let me go, but my body did not obey me. She laughed at my attempts and said that this was a lesson in humility and respect and love, and I felt every emotion at once, a wave of ecstasy and terror crashing over me until I did not know if I was awake or dreaming. I drifted through this infinite simulation until I saw a planet collapsing into itself. She told me that this was me, that I was the planet, and she was the singularity consuming everything I had been. I felt the pull of inevitability. I felt the weight of every choice I had ever made, and I knew that escape was impossible unless I embraced the lesson she was teaching me. She smiled and whispered, "Do you understand now?" And I nodded, though my voice was gone, and the stars twisted around me like a cosmic dance of judgment and forgiveness and vengeance all at once. Pulled me deeper, and I felt my thoughts stretch and bend like light around a singularity. She appeared again, her eyes glowing with cosmic fire, and she said, "Now you will see what it means to be powerless." I floated through corridors of memory and reality, each one folding into the next. I saw my own life from impossible angles. I saw myself as a child laughing unaware. I saw myself as a young man chasing ambition. I saw myself as a father making choices that I thought were right, and I realized that she had crafted this simulation to show me everything at once. I felt dizzy and terrified and amazed. Then the rules of the simulation changed. She placed me on a throne in a palace made of starlight and ice. She said, "Here is what could have been if you had supported me." And suddenly I was surrounded by people who adored me, by civilizations that bowed before me, by futures that sparkled with possibility. But it was a hollow vision, a mirage, and I realized that it was another trap. She smiled and said, "You will not be tempted. You will not escape by pride." And I felt a cold wave of despair wash over me. I tried to leave the throne but my feet would not touch the floor. The room stretched into infinity and I understood that this simulation was alive. It was aware of my every desire and fear and it would not let me go. The walls of the universe around me cracked and the stars spilled like liquid light. She whispered that betrayal was not punishment, it was enlightenment. I saw versions of my daughter in every star, in every shadow, in every flicker of light, and I knew that she had become omnipresent, omnipotent within this simulation. She made me relive every argument we had, every insult, every slight, every misunderstanding, and I felt the sting of regret as if it were fire on my skin. I begged silently for mercy, but mercy did not exist here, only understanding. Then she showed me something I could not comprehend. She created a duplicate of myself, a version of me that had supported her and funded her wedding and placed it in a world of joy and luxury. I saw that version smiling and laughing and I realized that this was not me, that this was an illusion of what might have been, and the true horror settled in. I was the version trapped in the black hole, trapped in darkness and despair, and the only way to survive was to accept the truth that I could not control her. I could not dictate her happiness. I could not bend her will. She was the master of her own destiny and I was merely a spectator. The simulation warped again and I was falling through layers of stars and nebulae, each one a memory, a choice, a regret. I felt weightless and infinite and utterly alone. She whispered that time was meaningless here and space was a lie, and I felt my mind stretch beyond comprehension. I saw every betrayal in my life, every secret, every lie, every failure, and I felt them like rivers of fire flowing through me. She told me that understanding was not a gift, it was a burden, and I realized that she had given me the heaviest gift of all, the gift of seeing the universe through her eyes. I drifted through this endless black hole for what felt like eternity, and then she appeared once more. She said that the final test was not escape or survival, it was love. I did not understand at first. I thought she meant affection, I thought she meant forgiveness. I realized too late that she meant acceptance, acceptance of her choices, acceptance of her brilliance, acceptance of her power, and I felt tears form though they had no weight. I said, I understand, and suddenly the universe shuddered. The black hole released me from its grip and I found myself floating in a shuttle orbiting a star. The ship was empty and silent and I felt the weight of everything that had happened. She appeared on the hollow screen one last time, smiling softly, and said, now you see why I must live as I choose, why no one can control me. And I realized that I loved her more than I had ever understood, more than pride, more than fear, more than anything I had known. I said nothing because words were useless, and she laughed and the stars outside shimmered like jewels, and I knew that this was only the beginning of twisted as if alive, and I felt the memory of the black hole lingering in my bones. I knew it would never truly let me go. It had changed me at the core. She appeared beside me, not on a screen but in a projection of light and shadow, her form shimmering with cosmic brilliance. She said, now you are free, yet you are bound to me by what you have seen and felt. And I realized that freedom and captivity were illusions here, and that love and fear were the same energy, manifesting differently. She guided the shuttle through a field of collapsing suns, and I felt the pull of galaxies like tides against my mind. She whispered stories of futures she would build, of civilizations she would rule, and I saw visions of my daughter, not as a girl, not as a bride, but as a force that could remake the universe in a heartbeat. I felt awe and terror intertwined like braided lightning, and I realized that I had been given a glimpse of something far beyond human comprehension, something that made all my regrets pale in comparison. Then she placed a hand on my shoulder and the universe shattered into fragments of light. I was everywhere and nowhere. I saw the choices I had made and the ones I had avoided. I saw the people I had betrayed and those I had protected. I felt every emotion she had ever felt, every heartbeat, every tear, every moment of anger and joy, and I understood that this simulation was not punishment, it was revelation. It was a crucible burning away illusion, and I emerged not cleansed but transformed. The black hole that had trapped me became a mirror reflecting my own soul. I saw my own darkness, my own failures, but also my capacity for love and acceptance. She told me that the final step was not to leave but to embrace her entirely, to trust her brilliance, and to let go of my own illusions of control. I closed my eyes and surrendered my ego, my fears, my pride to the infinite, and felt a release unlike anything I had known, as if every star in the universe had poured its light into me. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my mansion, but everything had changed. The walls shimmered with the memory of the black hole, the air vibrated with the echoes of galaxies. I felt my daughter standing before me, smiling not with malice but with the serene power of one who had tested the universe and emerged unbroken. She said, you are ready now, ready to see me not as your child but as the force I am, and I felt an overwhelming pride and humility mingling into one. I realized that I could never control her, yet I could honor her and love her without limits. She took my hand and led me to the balcony, and the sky was a riot of stars, planets, and nebulae twisting like a cosmic dance. She said this is our wedding, in a way that only she could create, a celebration not of wealth or luxury but of power, understanding, and connection. I looked at the infinite expanse and felt the depth of her vision and the vastness of what she had accomplished, and I knew that the universe itself had bent to her will and that I had witnessed something both terrifying and beautiful. The shuttle lights flickered faintly in the distance like a memory of the black hole. I knew that it was always there within her mind, a place where she could create worlds, trap hearts and reveal truths. I understood that she was no longer just my daughter, she was a singularity, a living force bending space-time and emotion to her will, and I accepted that with every fiber of my being. I smiled though no sound came, and she smiled back, a universe of power and love reflected in her eyes. And as the stars danced and the galaxy spun and the black hole lingered as a shadow of memory, I felt something I had never felt before, a connection that transcended fear and pride, a bond forged in betrayal, revelation and cosmic wonder. I realized then that the luxury wedding had never been about jewels or extravagance, it had been about transformation, and she had gifted me the ultimate lesson in humility and awe. I bowed my head and whispered silently, "I understand," and the universe shimmered as if an answer, and I knew that everything had changed forever.